And now for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning, we have with us, as usual, Arise News analyst, Dr. Constance Ikoku. Good morning, Doctor.
Hey, morning, Nankichi. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. And yourself?
I am wonderful. Very good morning to you, Yolanda and
good
Charles.
Morning.
Good morning, Dr. Constance.
Yeah, how was last week, Yolanda? You were absent.
I was down and out.
Yes. But you're
glad
up
to be back
now?
Yes, exactly. Glad to be back.
It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, to look at the papers with us this morning, we have Dr. Iyobosa Owogaren. He is the editor, Nation's Capital of This Day. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin with This Day newspaper. Here we have Presidency says, Tinubu not indicted as U.S. court orders release of records. A federal judge ordered the FBI and the Drug Enforcement Administration to release records of their investigation on the alleged involvement of President Bola Tinubu in drug trafficking. The order followed a 2023 lawsuit filed under the Freedom of Information Act by American activist Aaron Greenspan. We know that Chief Bola Tinubu, before he became president, tried to stop the release, citing privacy concerns. The court has ruled that some information must be made public. The president has been, he's been dogged by this case for many years, and it came into sharp focus in 2023 during the presidential election. And his team is trying to blow this off as nothing serious. In fact, let's even pull up a Daily Sun newspaper because we have a similar story there. In Daily Sun, the presidency describes this as, quote, nonsense. And they said they are, honestly unruffled. Dr. Owogaren, do you believe that the president and his team are unbothered? And what do you think are the implications of this, if any?
Well, until that document is released, we don't know the content of that document. We're not in a position to say whether the president was actually indicted or not. But from the point of the presidency, we are told that it's nothing new, and that the document did not indict President Bola Tinubu. But I remember before the general elections, the likes of Reno Mokri, they were the real advocate of this document, claiming that the president was indicted in terms of financial money laundering and drugs. I remember Reno then was insisting that we cannot have a drug baron as our president. But today, Reno is one of the advocates of who is saying that, the president is the best thing that's ever happened to Nigeria. Like the presidency's statement said yesterday, let's wait for the document because the request for the release of the document is based on the Freedom of Information's request made by one Aaron, who is based in the U.S. Although the president has dismissed it, but after that document is released and we all know the content of the document, then we cannot make informed decisions. But for now, I think it's mere speculations. Let's wait for the release of the document. Since a competent court of law has ordered that that document should be made opened or released to members of the public, or to Aaron, who made that request.
All right. I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to see what is in that document. On to Vanguard newspaper this morning. 2027, still a lot on the president. 2027, Tinubu moves to halt APC members' defection from CPC bloc. Plans are in place to appease former President Buhari's loyalists and prevent their defection to the Social Democratic Party. The Buhari loyalists make up the Congress for Progressive Change bloc that merged with the Action Congress of Nigeria and others to form the APC, that's the All Progressives Congress. Well, President Bola Tinubu is a politically savvy man and politician. We're going to be seeing more of this kind of moves. I mean, he's not like former President Goodluck Jonathan, who, when confronted with a similar situation, literally threw his hands up in the air and didn't do much. Dr. Owogaren.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Tinubu is one of the most, whether we like it or not, or whether we like him or not, Tinubu is one of the most politically conscious persons we have in this country today. So he understands the game very well. And that is why even when he was wanted to contest the election, even when the then President Bola Ahmed, President Buhari, and many of his supporters did not support him. And he kept on telling the whole world that they will vote and he will win. So he won that elections. And there's this argument, especially the one made recently by Sule Lamido, the former governor of Jigawa State, that if Tinubu could win election when he was not supported by then President Buhari and many of his supporters, then now that is now the president, the sitting president, who understands the game very well, who virtually control all the security apparatus, who perhaps, have hijacked the National Assembly, all the institutions of power in Nigeria. So who will be able to stop him when the time comes? But we are seeing the swelling opposition who are trying to come together to challenge him. It's good. It's in line with our democratic struggle. At the end of the day, let's see whether they will be able to upstage Tinubu in the next general election. But like you said, Tinubu is not President Jonathan, former President Jonathan, who had a very, democratic temperament of trying to follow the due process in ensuring that nothing is disrupted when it comes to election. But this time around, the people who are used to the game, trying to get power by all means necessary, are in power. And I don't know how the opposition is going to do it to upstage him in 2027 general election. Dr.
Ugere, I like that word, democratic temperament. That's a new one, and that's a very good one. Let's move on to Abuja Enquirer. In that paper, we have 2027 Tinubu disclaims campaign billboards nationwide. With regard to this, actually, when I was driving over the weekend in Asokoro, I did see some of those billboards all across the place. And I mean, it flouts the electoral law on campaigns. And how does the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria allow this? Charles, if you want to come in here. Well, one is related to opposition billboards. They don't take time. They quote the law and they bring them down.
Who appoints the head of those regulatory agencies? He who pays the piper calls the tune. Of course, if it's anything concerning the president, they'll have to tread very carefully. However, it's not a new thing in the country when you're just 2 years into a particular election cycle and then people are already looking forward to the next election cycle. It's not just the president alone. Even in the states I have visited recently, there are billboards proclaiming another 4-year term for the incumbent governors. However, I think in the case of President Tinubu, so much opposition coming from all directions, and so I think at this point he would want to step in and arrest something that will also bring his reputation into further disrepute. And that's the reason the presidency is stepping in at the moment to say, look, we are not part of the people who are putting out these billboards over there. But sometimes I also wonder who is also providing the funding, because it's not for free.
And why they say up, they can bring them down.
Exactly. And I agree with Charles. Who exactly is behind these billboards? Because somebody is paying a lot of money for them. They're in strategic locations. They're massive all over the capital. As you can see, they're also buses littered everywhere with President Tinubu and Vice President Kashima's photos. But if we're to take the presidency at their word, they are not aware, they did not authorize this, and I think it's important for them to actually come out and distance themselves from this, because like you stated, Dr. Constance, the Electoral Act is clear. Campaigning before INEC's official timetable is out is premature, and so they have to come out and distance themselves from these adverts.
2 years ahead of time, that's quite early. Last in New Telegraph, Soyinka to FG, lift ban on Tell Your Papa. Soyinka government's action petulant irrationality. The song by Idris Abdul Karim, banned by the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, is an attempt to stifle artistic and socio-political commentary, says Professor Wole Soyinka. The song is critical of President Bola Tinubu and it literally asks his son, Sheyi, to tell his father that things are very difficult in the country. Yolanda, I don't know if you've listened to the song, but you know, in the past we've had people sing about the president, but this particular song, when you listen to it, it actually is talking about everything we say every day in the news, that people are writing about in the paper, that, you know, people are blogging about. So what's different?
That's true. Yes, actually, I have heard the song, and I'm sure many others have as well. And the message in it is very clear and very loud. And just as you said, it's very direct and indicative of all the things that we see on the blogs, on social media, and it really just gives a feel of how the everyday person is feeling and what is going on in reality. And you know, about this ban being lifted, it's a good move because it puts a lot into question, especially in the areas of freedom of expression. You know, how far are people allowed to go? And also as well with, you know, cultural reflection and being able to express yourself artistically. So I do agree with lifting the ban on this, and the government, you know, should pay attention to what people are saying and take it as a wake-up call to say, if people are bold enough to put this in a song, we really should pay attention before more dire things begin to happen.
This will be the second time Idris is having his song banned from the airwaves. Nigeria Jaga Jaga, remember that one?
Yeah, during Obasanjo.
President Obasanjo actually took exception to that song and said they should go and tell Idris that it is his own father that is Jaga Jaga. Idris should have actually seen this coming. But on the other hand, I think this kind of publicity is probably would work in Idris's favor. But yes, the call for lifting the ban on the song is very appropriate. I remember too that Blackface actually had a song, Hard Life, Where We Live for Nigeria, and he did explicitly mention President Obasanjo in that song, saying something like, OBJ, we don't need you, but he didn't get banned. So I wonder who actually has taken the decision to ban Idris second time around. Yeah,
Dr. Owugiaren did have an angle on the NBC.
Yes, I agree that the music is resonating with many Nigerians because of the current situation we find ourselves in the country. And the ban by the NBC also had helped popularize the music. We're told that as at last week, millions of people have downloaded that music on the YouTube. But however, if you also look at the NBC ads, I think our focus should be on the NBC. How do we get NBC to you know, reorganize its code, make sure that the code, you know, does not affect or does not attack Nigerian freedom of expression. Because if you look at the NBC code, NBC said you can't play such song on airway like radio, television, because according to them, it's offensive, it's preaching hatred, it's preaching violence. And they've always had that code in the NBC for a very long time. You remember when, during the days of Fela, most of the Fela songs were also banned from being aired on radio or on television. So I think it's the same thing with this one. But I think our focus, it should be how do we reform the NBC code in such a way that it conforms with the global standard, and so that it doesn't also affect or attack Nigerian freedom of expressions. I think this is exactly what we need to do, rather than you know, criticizing NBC. The code is there. Until that code is removed, I think they will continue to implement it.
So we have jobs for the NGOs right there. Let's go to one more paper, Daily Independent. Here it says Gabon's junta chief wins presidency by landslide. I mean, after dancing his socks off, we all saw that trending video. If we can put that video off, that trending video of Gabon's military leader showing off his dance moves on campaign stage. Bryce Oligui won the election with 90% of the votes, a typical case of a soldier transmuting to a civilian ruler. Any comments here before we move to the international headlines?
I mean, I remember Nguema spoke to Al Jazeera, and he says, look, I'm on a mission, and I think they were dubbing it like a rebranding coup. So basically, he's saying that, look, he wants to restore dignity to Gabon, to the people, to return what has been stolen from them. However, Gabon is a country that they've been suffering for a while. Electricity doesn't work. 40% of youth currently unemployed. So I think the world will be watching Nguema and his 90% win, and will hold him to his word definitely, because it's hard for you to rebrand yourself when this win, I can say, has been like a coup, born out of a coup, basically. And so we'll watch and see. But he's talking the big talk right now and dancing
the big dance.
Now let's just hope that he also does not transmute into another despotic, democratically elected leader, because I mean it's very difficult to get the military junta thing out of their system when they come into power like that. Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, very good example. Even President Omar Bongo and his dynasty, I mean, they came in through military coups and then transmuted into civilian president and then remained sit tight. So I hope that that phenomenon does not repeat itself with Nguema.
All right, to the international papers, Daily Graphic, government rejects Goldfields Damang lease renewal. This mining lease is held by Aboso Goldfields Limited. Also at the top left-hand corner, we have President launches Feed Ghana program to transform agric landscape. Onto Citizen newspaper, councils take pensions billions. Here, 150 councils have failed to pay workers' contributions to retirement funds, and unions are threatening legal action, saying pensioners are shortchanged. Then we have Daily Telegraph this morning. Army sent in to clean up rubbish on streets. The strike by bin workers has lasted over 9 months, leaving more than 17,000 tons of waste rotting in the streets in Birmingham. A number of military personnel with operational planning expertise are now offering logistical support to tackle crisis. Yolanda, I mean, can you imagine a city without bin collectors? Often these people are lowly paid, and they're not seen as very important, but we can see that without bin collectors, it's going to be a health crisis.
Well, they're not paid much, but their responsibility is quite big. You know, this is there's a lot. There's a lot to take out of this. There's two sides to it. First of all, there's the pollution, which is a danger to people's health. Having waste bins on the side of the road, you have all sorts of infestations of disease, rodents, all sorts of things, and having that month upon month without being, you know, attended to is a bigger problem that is just brewing. The second perception that I have is, you know, I worry about the public perception of the military. Is this really something that the military should be doing? I understand that, you know, they need all hands on deck at this point, but this could alter how the public sees the military and their role, and definitely it shows and highlights a complete failure on the local governance.
Yeah, well, according to the story, they're not actually on the streets picking the rubbish.
Yes, they said it was
giving
more
some
of a, they worded it quite well. They said it was more of an expertise type of approach. But at the end of the day, if this garbage is going to be moved, I'm pretty sure that there's going to be some heavy lifting that's involved there.
All right, on to Daily Express. Kemi Bednar, Kemi declares it's time to buy British. The Conservative leaders rallying call on British people amidst, you know, Trump tariffs. UK has been slammed with 10% of the tariff, and she says we have to begin to buy British. This is expected, the tariff is expected to damage exporters and dampen domestic growth and in the UK. And then finally to Daily Mail, who wants to go to the moon? Is it the moon they're heading to? Katy Perry's countdown to blast off. She's heading into space, actually, with an all-female crew, including Gail King, rocket scientist Aisha Bowana, and a few others. It sounds cool. Does anybody want to go to space? I don't mind. You can make friends with Jeff Bezos.
I think I like the way that this was worded, that they're going to outer space, but I don't think they're going into deep space. They're just passing the Kármán line, which is just basically 100 kilometers off of Earth. So they're just in the, you know, on the surface of going into space, and they're not actually going into space because
outer space is outer space.
Exactly. Space is space.
Whether it's 10 feet above planet Earth, it's still outer space.
good point.
But for someone like me who hates flying, I think it's an experience I'd rather pass.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I'll pass that as well. I'm not that adventurous. Dr. Constance, you can go and come back and tell us.
I will. I am
amazing
so
stories.
adventurous. Jeff
I second
Bezos.
that. I will not be going.
Jeff Bezos.
Do newspaper review from there. That would be fantastic.
Jeff Bezos, if you are listening, I would like to go. Anyway, we have to leave it there. Dr. Iyobosa Wugeran, editor, Nation's Capital of This Day. Thank you so much for joining us today.
And we'd like to thank you also, Dr. Constance Ikoku, for joining us on Daybreak this morning. And that's all the time we have for you here on Daybreak. I am Nkechi Nana.
And I'm Charles Eruka. It's goodbye from me.
I'm Yolanda Robert. Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Goodbye.